What's your name, sir?
I'm John.
John?
External Veteran Productions.
Oh, so tell me about that.
Oh, I make convention-safe props. Prop firearms.
So you made all this yourself?
I made the props.
Okay.
Some of this stuff has been found. This is a basic weightlifting brace you can get at any sporting goods store.
Okay.
So you see I cut some holes in it. These are some surplus ammo pouches. I believe they're Russian. This is a convention find. It fits my oversized phone. That's scabbard off the internet. And obviously I did not bring a knife. You bring the live blade to a convention is stupid. And this is an eBay find. As you can see, it's signed by Mike Perkins, who drew a lot of the Winter Soldier run.
Right in there. Oh, that's great.
He ran up to me
Mike Perkins.
He ran up to me at New York City Comic Con last year, ecstatic to see a Union Jack cosplayer. And being a real pro, I had no clue who he was. I embarrassed myself. He drew a run of Union Jack comics, London Falling, which I highly recommend.
Yes.
Anyway, I have a friend who does custom leather. He made the bracers for me. The suit was designed by Super Geek Designs. It's a dude on Facebook who's really good at custom body print patterns.
Hey, you're too far away. You got to be able to hear it. Yeah, I know the comic. That's the one where he just wanted to go to sleep.
I think so.
It
was a comic. It was Raid. It was terrorizing London.
Yes, they had
Super Sabra and Arabian Night.
Arabian Night, exactly.
That's a good read.
Oh, that's fantastic.
All right, cheers.
Great. What's your name again?
John.
And
I'm with Disgruntled Veteran Productions. You can check me out on Facebook or Etsy.
And guys, if
check the link below.
You know what? I'm going to try and put a link below. Actually, I'm going to check it. I'm going to find you, and I'm going to put a link on it.
For sure. All right.
Comic Book University.
Thank you.
Thank you. You don't know who Union Jack is, you're wrong. Take it easy, man.
Sure. Do you have a card?
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another exciting class at the Comic Book University. Let's begin, shall we? As you can probably tell by the beginning of the video, we're going to be talking about Union Jack. Now, Union Jack is one of those kind of characters that you've probably never even heard of, right? I mean, unless you're a hardcore comics fan, such as myself, fellow instructor, perhaps, yes. But for the most part, he's a European character, and us American types were like, you know, Captain America, Spider-Man, Superman, you know, like that, right? Union Jack is actually a very popular character, not just in England, jolly old England. I almost did a English voice there. That wouldn't have been good. Anyway, so he actually is a pretty exciting character. The problem is that he just hasn't quite found his place yet. First off, it's important to understand that there are three distinct Union Jacks. Now, the first Union Jack is Lord James Falsworth. His first appearance was in Invaders number 7, July of 1976. Now, Lord James was actually a veteran of World War I and World War II. Yeah, he's kind of old, that perfect in-betweener generation, right? He was eligible for both, but he was a superhero during both. Now, he served in the war. He served on the Invaders. If you're not familiar with the Invaders, this is a team that is kind of like a retrospective that consists of the original Human Torch, Jim Hammond, Toro, who is widely considered to be one of the first mutants, however later retconned to actually be an Inhuman because Marvel and Fox don't get along anymore, so mutants are a bad thing. We're gonna add that the very first Marvel character and the very first mutant thereby, Prince Namor, and no, they haven't retconned him yet. He was in there, and Captain America and Bucky, the once and future Winter Soldier. These characters are all part of the Invaders, and a little later on, they incorporated some of the British superheroes who came along later, Spitfire being one of them, and Union Jack. Now, Lord James Falsworth is as you could tell, a very rich guy. He comes from North London. Not quite Batman wealthy, but he's got some cash flow coming his way. That ancient old money kind of thing that we would say in America. So he arms himself with a cool little costume and a revolver and a dagger. Goes out and he's fighting Nazis, because that's what you do. Well, in World War I, they weren't quite Nazis. They were Germans. They're not the same. Just, if you don't know that, you need to start looking up some World War I history. And that's not what this channel is all about. So, fighting the Germans in both wars. But a big thing about him is that he fights vampires. And that's a pretty cool idea. He's not actually fighting Dracula. So he's fighting kind of original vampires. The most original of the vampires he fights, Baron Blood. Now, spoilers, it turns out that Baron Blood is actually his brother. He's a vampire and he came back and he hates the Falsworth family. You know, it's, I don't know, worse than a sibling rivalry. And all sorts of really bad things happen. At one point in World War II, the thing that causes the retirement of Lord Falsworth is that he's fighting his brother in a cave. And Baron Blood tosses a boulder at Union Jack, actually crushes the poor guy's legs. Guys are crippled now. He's still able to fight, and he impales Baron Blood on a stalagmite that's laden with silver, a silver mine. It's important at this point to understand that silver, while in our universe supposedly kills werewolves, in the Marvel universe, it's a very good way to kill vampires. Just look at Blade. Case in point, wood or silver is able to kill supernatural creatures, specifically vampires. But silver can be used for so many different supernatural creatures in the Marvel universe. So, kills him that way. Much later on, he tries to come out of retirement to help out Captain America because he needs some help with things. Turns out that Baron Blood has returned, and it's a big mess. It's a big mess, and the whole family's really just kind of messed up. It's no wonder that it was properly changed, not retconned, but properly changed, that the Falsworths no longer have anything to do with Union Jack after a certain amount of time. But the mantle was eventually inherited by his son, Brian Falsworth. Now, Brian first appeared in The Invaders number 18. That's a full 11 issues later, and a year later, like exactly 1 year later. But he appeared as a character called the Destroyer. Now, the Destroyer really wasn't much of anything. It was a nothing. But it was the idea that Lord James originally thought that his son was a Nazi sympathizer because he wasn't helping. He wasn't helping the guys out. He wasn't helping anybody out. Him and his lover, yes, Brian, James's son, was actually a gay character. First introduced again back in 1977, this actually predates North Star by 2 years, and therefore potentially makes him the first out-and-out gay character in the Marvel Universe. Potentially. Debatable, but we can discuss that another time, another class. In the meantime, we have this character who shows up, named the Destroyer, and it's revealed that he's actually his son, James's son. And he turns over the mantle of Union Jack to him. He goes off a little bit. He's not very popular in the comics. At one point, they try to boost him up a little bit, and they have Thor show up and hits him with a bolt of his mystical lightning, and he's able to now fire bolts of lightning from his finger, also magical. Didn't really do anything to help the character, probably made it worse. Nobody really wants to see this character as a super powered character, and the show's later on. Now, at this point, we're going to move on because his character was just killed. Brian Falsworth didn't work out very well at all. In fact, in a Captain America issue, he was actually revealed to have died in a car accident by Lord Falsworth. So basically, kid got a off-panel death. I mean, it wasn't even worthy of actually having it happen in the comics. Just made it off-panel. Horrible. Absolutely horrible. Deal with it. Suck it up. Drive on. So, Captain America, issue number 253, that's January 1981, Joseph Chapman is introduced. Now, Joseph is actually from Manchester, and Joseph is the son of a shipbuilder. Joseph is not very impressive at all. He's a guy from the streets. He's not rich. He's not much of anything. But he wound up befriending the nephew of Union Jack 2. And in a really weird kind of thing, he happens to come over and visit at the exact same moment that Captain America Steve Rodgers is there. And there is an assassination attempt against Lord Falsworth himself. Now, James actually wants to become Union Jack again, but it's not a really good idea. I mean, the poor guy's in a wheelchair. Like, what are you going to do? So instead, since his nephew is not in such great shape, his only real heir, they give the position instead to Chapman. So Joseph Chapman becomes the third and the present version of Union Jack. Now, he goes off, he helps, he saves the day, he does all the good stuff in that issue. And moving along, he doesn't show up in American comics very often, but he does show up. He's mostly in the UK Marvel comics. Not all of them necessarily made it over here. And there are a few examples of that happening where a European, a UK comic doesn't quite make it over here. They're really written for over there. And seeing as it's the UK, most of those comics are oriented around the idea of serving the British people as opposed to the American people. And a lot of those stories also revolve around the Arthurian legends, which America likes, but you can't oversaturate us with it because we're going to reject it eventually. It's not the most interesting thing in the world to us. But over there, it sells really well. And not well enough that you can put a dumpy story in, and that's essentially what I'm alluding to. The stories that they did with the all-new invaders and MI-13 and all these different versions of whatever, Excalibur over there with Captain Britain. Yes, there's a Captain Britain. Essentially, whatever. It is what it is. They actually tried to infuse Union Jack with powers also. The power of the Pendragon. The Green Knight of Avalon came over and gave him some powers, and he was infused with a Pendragon spirit, and it turned out that this particular one that infused him was the spirit of Sir Lancelot, and he was given some super duper strength, and they kept on making him bigger and bigger and bigger in all of the comics until eventually it's like, dude, he's just basically the Hulk or the Juggernaut or some jabroni like that. We don't need another one of those, and nobody was interested in seeing a superpowered Union Jack. He eventually lost all of his powers. He was able to maintain a little bit of them, enough that he wasn't a super-powered being, but he was considered enhanced. So not quite Captain America levels, but some unspecified level in between. Maybe the guy could bench press half a ton under extreme conditions. That's the idea that I get when I read the comics. There was also a point where he had a suit, not quite Iron Man levels, but yeah, kind of like an Iron Man suit. It could do all sorts of really cool, nifty things that just didn't really matter, tracking and things like that, computer analysis, hacking abilities, whatever. And it could even travel through dimensions. That was not explained through science, but that really didn't sell well. So it always comes back to the idea of stop trying to make him powered to make him interesting and simply get good writers to write. Now, I'm going to refer back to a story called London Falling. This was the comic that was mentioned in the beginning of the episode with Joe from Disgruntled Veterans. By the way, that whole thing happened at the Fan Expo Canada Friday that just passed. That was the 2nd of September, 2016. Really good time, really fun time. And it comes down to the idea that he was just over fighting vampires, and he was actually able to kill the very last, possibly, vampire in England. It's kind of like their way of saying, okay, we're done with doing the vampire stories with Union Jack. He's able to kill more than just vampires, for crying out loud. So he comes over and he teams up with Sabra and the Arabian Night, and he also teams up with Contessa Valentina Allegra de Fontaine. Yes, I had to look that one up. So he teams up with these three against a terrorist threat, superpowered terrorists at that, who are trying to blow up London. It's actually a really good story. It's a fantastic story, and if I had to recommend one book, graphic novel, it's actually 4 parts, to give you a good idea of who Union Jack is and what he's capable of doing, the not superpowered, the actually good writing version of Union Jack, all that aside, that is the story to read. London Falling. It is a fantastic story. You can't help but to love the character after reading that. After that, read everything with a grain of salt, because it's good, it's not great. At the same time, he's still good as a supporting character, even if you can't write him that well, because he showed up to help out Steve Rodgers once in a while. He even showed up to help out Spider-Man once. In fact, a really cool part is that he was moved to tears giving a eulogy at the death of Captain America, the funeral, I should say. There are some really good moments with this character. He's, again, not supposed to, and this is just the my opinion section, he's not supposed to be superpowered. Enhanced by having some remaining stuff because you want to keep the stuff in continuity, I get it, I understand, I'm good with it. I'm totally good with it. But he should be more human than anything else. I don't need an Iron version, the Iron Man version. I don't need the Hulk Juggernaut version. I'm good with the regular old, kind of like an answer to Captain America version of Union Jack. He's a guy, he carries a handgun, and he'll carry, sometimes a mission will need him to carry a different kind of handgun than the mission prior or the mission after. So his handgun is revolving. Funny because it's oftentimes a revolver, but anyway. And he always carries with him his knife, and it's actually a silver-laced knife, not completely made of silver, that'll fall apart, but silver-laced. This way, just in case he does come across some kind of a mystical creature, he's got it covered. Union Jack is a great character. I highly recommend going to check the guy out. No, there will not be a test, but nonetheless, you still have to subscribe below. Guys, thanks for showing up. Later. Class dismissed.